matter of whether or not the value is there in those media platforms versus, say, a platform like YouTube, right? Like, where
Uh-huh.
are the dollars better spent? And that's the part that I feel like, depending who you talk to, you get a different response, based on
Yes.
the
So we
routes
got
each company takes.
yeah, we got it. So that was part of, and maybe we should wait till Andrew gets here. It was just a question I had, and he's like, he goes, "Or are you gonna do it?" And I go, "Yeah, I already agreed to it." Um, but then we started going, okay, we started down this big giant rabbit hole of of exactly what you just said, right? What is more, what's the value of it all? So I don't know. I don't know. There's a lot going into it. Maybe we'll wait till he gets here. He's running a little late, but yeah, I, I hadn't thought about it until I got the phone call, and then I was like, okay, well, that's what we did in the past. Is that what we should go continue to do in the future? And I wonder if some of these companies, I think there's a big, let me say this. I think there's a giant disconnect right now. Oh man, so I say, do you think anyone knows what they're actually doing in the fishing industry? And I'm not being mean. I'm saying, do they know, or do you think these companies are trying to figure out where to actually go?
I think a lot. I think there's a lot of companies out there where there's a lot of marketing dollars spent on trying to uncover the next big thing, right? Like, if you can figure out that the next good marketing move, you'll have it to yourself until the entire industry jumps on it. Because that's what tends to happen in our industry. Like, somebody figures out a good way to promote something, and then next thing you know, every company's doing the exact same thing, and I feel like it loses that value. So I think there's a lot of dollars that get spent on trying to uncover that next good marketing move, but I'd be willing to bet you 9 out of 10 of those fail. So it almost, it's, is it a question of they don't know what they're doing, or they're just sampling around trying enough other avenues, knowing that most of those probably aren't going to work? Like, I don't, I mean, I don't, I'm not a marketing guy per se. My approach now is kind of
Sort
like,
of.
I listened to you with Black Rifle Coffee, and it was kind of like, we're gonna go a little bit everywhere, right? Like, get into everything, and you're almost trying to just completely hammer the entire market with whatever brand it is. I mean, that's kind of what my approach right now is. Like, I feel like when I get opportunities to do something, assuming it's reasonable, a reasonable ask, I do it. Like, I mean, why not jump onto podcasts, or why not put out a daily video, and why not, do all these different things to hopefully force, I don't want to say force myself and my personal brand down the viewers' throats, but it is one of those things. Like, I find that the more I do, the better the reward is. And whether that's just because, you're reaching a few extra people every time you do it, or whether it's whatever, I don't know. I mean, I just know that there is a correlation for me based on the more that I partake in, the better I feel like the reward is. And the reward isn't necessarily monetary. The reward is like exposure, really, is what it comes down to, which in the fishing world, I dropped a hover rig on the floor. I don't want to get that in my toe. Uh, yeah, the more that I put out there, the better the return is for my personal brand, which ends up letting me, like, potentially giving me opportunities at different things in the future. And for guys like us, Todd, that's what I feel like is the game. It's like, how can we make ourselves relevant? The longer we keep ourselves relevant, the greater the potential for a new door to open somewhere along the way.
I Yeah. So what got me thinking about all that, because I agree with you. Um, a- and this is a great example. you know, Wyatt Frankins and Shane Campbell have this like podcast kind of. I don't really know if I wouldn't say it's based on Rayburn by any means, but I mean they're Rayburn guys, right? They're Rayburn Toledo guys. I would say more Rayburn guys, and of course Wyatt went and fished all the invitationals last year, so he was with you, and then Shane went and fished all 9 of the opens last year. But they have fished team stuff, they fish individual stuff, team stuff together. They won the Texas Team Trail Championship like 2 years ago, I believe, on Choke Canyon. They've done some stuff. So, anyways, they invite. I've known them for a long time. I knew Shane back with Tackle Addict. Him and Jeff. Jeff started Tackle Addict. He was there at the time as well. They asked me to do a podcast. I did it with them. I don't know, Monday, I believe. So I'm same thing, right? Like just another deal. And we got into the whole. We're not going to go down this road today, but they got into this big, long tournament deal, which we've always talked about. Like they wouldn't fish. Look, one wouldn't fish 9 opens, the other wouldn't fish 6 invitationals. I didn't ask them, but it felt like maybe they're not going that route again because they were like, I mean, all the things we've been saying about going that route, they wouldn't witness it firsthand.
Yeah.
Right. And so, but anyways, yeah, I started thinking about like, well, podcast's no big deal. I can do that at my house. But then if someone asks you to go do something fishing wise, that's a whole day. That you're doing something for someone else's platform. You're paying for it all. They're getting all the rewards. There's maybe some reward in the sponsorship of what you're doing out there on the water, but I could go do that myself. I don't know if that sharing that platform is really worth it. Not sharing it, but I don't know. I was just.
Did you listen to
no
Chris Zaldane's podcast with I'm drawing a blank. Lunkers TV. Owner of Guggen. Why am I drawing a blank on that? Rob Turkla. Fantastic podcast. Like I was it was a podcast. I just happened to be, there's like a window at the end of the day. The kids go to bed at like 8. By the time you got them in bed, it's 8:30. And at that point, for me, that's like I have like an hour window where I go veg on the couch, right? Like I'm done. I've worked my butt off all day, just got the kids asleep. I get to watch something on TV. And I just happened to come across that podcast and I turned it on, and the damn thing, I'm up till midnight because I was like that engaged by it. It was really good. And it was really interesting to hear one of the takes that Rob mentioned. And, he's Guggen squad guy. They all got together, worked together to build that bunch of YouTubers. He actually made the comment on there that it's not a good thing to try to help build each other's platforms, to do a bunch of collaboration type stuff, because like in this case, us doing this, your viewers, Todd, like you, they follow you, they watch you for whatever reason. My viewers like me for whatever reason, and just because we do this doesn't necessarily mean there's going to be like this huge swap over of people, because the people, they watch our content for who we are. And he actually, which really surprised me, he actually made the case that that's not a great route to go. And it's better off to do your own thing and just try to continue to build your own model based on whatever process it is that you do. Because when you do bring new people, so let's say in this case, if you did the video yourself versus going and doing it for somebody else's platform, you would be building your platform and getting better reward from that in the long run versus potentially pulling a handful of people over from the other platform, which I thought was interesting, because my assumption with the Guggen squad was those guys all got together, and they may have been different at that point because they were really truly some of the first like YouTubers, fishing YouTubers. But he's saying in today's day and age, it's really not as nearly as valuable as most people think.
Okay, so here's my take on that, which is crazy that this was the comment that like there's no teamwork anymore. Everyone's looking out for themselves. I think most people are. I think 100% most people are, and I understand why most people are. And I think for a while, I think there's a lot of reasons for that. I'll go into that in a second, but I don't really know if you can look at YouTube the way in that same way, because when they started it, they were so new and fresh because no one was doing it. I just think the newness. Now, I look at it, man, this is just totally me. I'm pretty secure in myself that if I brought someone else on, I'm not over there going, oh man, because maybe this is what he's worried about. I don't know, that like, oh, they're gonna stop watching me and start watching them. Because like you just said, they either like you or they don't. And so they'll either watch you or they won't, in my opinion. Andrew made a comment, because I kind of take the Joe Rogan approach, which is Joe Rogan has all these guys that have their own podcasts and he invites them on all the time. And all he's doing, and if you want to call him I don't consider it competition. I just don't. And I'll tell you why. But he has those guys on that is essentially competition for him. And he has those guys on all the time and they promote their stuff. And he has zero problem doing it. And he's grown into the biggest podcaster there is, right? Because he's like, I've never seen, you can tear people down and do all that stuff. And listen, I'm not the greatest guy on that because I was like this loner fisherman, like me against the world forever. And I don't look at it that way, because when I talked to Andrew about this yesterday, and I said, hey, look, there's 24 hours in a day, right? If you put something good on, like a video, and it's good, people are going to watch it. Like, they're going to watch it. And rarely do they watch more than 15 to 20 minutes would be a long time, right? Now, this might go longer, but they can rewatch this, whatever. I mean, I listen to podcasts all the time in my truck. Now, that's what I do. And so, like, I'll get 15 minutes while I'm driving somewhere, and then 2 days later or whatever, when I get 20 more minutes, I'll do that way. But I don't see how we can't put out enough stuff on YouTube, right? You can put out, one guy's watching one of your videos for 10 to 12 minutes and then watches mine. He's probably sitting there going, yeah, I've got like hours to watch some more stuff if he wanted to. I don't think he's going, well, I'm just going to watch Matt's 15-minute video today, and then I'm never going to look on YouTube.
Yeah.
Again.
It's TV at that point. They're going from one show to the next.
So people watch a lot of TV, a lot of, like, you know, some people watch TikTok the whole time. Some people do whatever. I just don't see it as much as a taking it away. When you work with someone, now there's a difference between like kind of working with someone and then like doing, my deal was like, hey, doing someone else's thing and it costing you a bunch of money to go do it. And they're just sitting back there like, hey, give me all the content so I can do it. That was kind of my deal. But I don't know if
I feel like in that situation, I feel like there should be some form of compensation, at least like reimbursement of travel expenses and stuff. I mean, I don't know the specific. We started talking a minute before we went live, so like you weren't even able to give me the details. But
no, and I'm not. It doesn't matter. I was just it got me thinking that how we used to do, like, so before like 5 years ago, if someone asked you a time like to do that, you'd have jumped on it. Yeah, because you had no other way to get that out there, and they had a giant platform, so you would go do it, and then you could show your sponsor. And now, and that's kind of when I got into this other deal, is I think, me personally, that some of the, and this is big time names in the industry, or big corporate, big everything, that they really don't know which avenue to take. Like I think the way of the before you had the Bassmaster Elites was on TV and that was it. And then FLW came and that was it. And then other than that, there was no way else to get anything out there. And now it's evolved into this. And so now they're having to go all these different avenues. And some of them still want to go the old school way, right? Because I remember, I don't know, I just remember there was a way that they used to do it. And I don't know if I particularly agree with that way anymore. And
so if you were in that position, marketing manager, you had so many dollars. Where are you putting it?
God, I wish Andrew was on for this now. Where am I putting? When I listen to Paul on the Black Rifle deal. Okay. Let me ask you this. So
I asked you a question.
I know. I'm going to break it down. You know how they have like MetLife Stadium?
Yeah.
Or whatever it is. Or they'll have, I've seen Farmers one time, I think, sponsor the entire NCAA.
Yep.
The basketball deal. That, I don't even want to put a number on that. And I probably need to start looking at comments. Comments are probably through the roof now. And I've got stuck.
So you think that's a good approach or bad approach?
There is no way I am buying insurance or something because I see it on a little billboard on the thing for the NCAA, and I have Farmers Insurance. I'm just saying,
but I'm telling you, there's value to that. Like, here's an example.
But if you're asking me, here's what I'm going to say. This is what I'm going to say. I'm going to answer your question, Matt. If I watch you, if I don't care, whatever it might be, let's just put a bait, right? You're sponsored by XYZ, and I could care less. I could care less that you're sponsored by there, and you finished 19th in an event 2 weeks ago, and you finished 4th last week. I don't even care about any of that. And you put out a video that I watched you catch like 3 giants back to back to back, right, on this one bait. And you talk about it a little bit, and you might catch one in a tournament. I don't even care if it's in a tournament. It makes sense to me. And it wasn't in some pond. It wasn't somewhere like you're fishing along. And you're like, man, what? Man, whatever. Dude, I'm going to buy that bait. But I am never buying that bait. Probably if you just like at ICAST talking about it, going, look at this bait. Yeah. It's da-da-da. I'm like, okay, great, maybe. Because we get, listen, me and you, I would say 95%. I'm just speaking for you. Tell me if I'm wrong. Do you get almost most of your information either from you or from like really semi-close buddies?
I mean, dude, yeah, if we're talking information, there's like 4 local guys I would talk to in terms of it, like trusting what they're telling me.
Okay.
But we're talking like local fisheries at that point. So it's not even like, it's not valuable information because I know all the local fisheries anyways. So information for me is basically dock talk. All it does is screw me up. I need to go out and do it on my own. Like I just show up and fish at this point.
I'm not talking about for a tournament. I'm talking about like if you wanted to try a new bait.
Oh, yeah. It needs to come from somebody who I feel very confident is shooting me straight. If it's like, hey, you got to go try this crankbait. I've been smashing them on it. I mean, you get comments all the time, don't you, in your YouTube videos? I mean, I'm not going out buying all the baits that people are mentioning just because I wouldn't be able to afford that. But yes, I agree with what you're saying. There's a handful of people that probably, if they're like, you really need to go try this, it would make me go out and buy it. If I would be much more willing to buy a product if I saw somebody putting that bait to use in an application that I think I could present it in a similar manner, whether it's on a lake that fishes the same way. Maybe it's the lake I fish, right? Like, so from that standpoint, I think there's much more value to that.
Okay, so my point. So when you ask me, what would I put money into right now? I think if you had a very good product, like, well, obviously we would have to have a good product. So say I had a good product. If this was me and I had a very good product and it was this one bait, right? Forget all sponsorship, all that stuff. Just start all over from blank canvas. And I
Yeah.
had this one bait and it was phenomenal, right? And I wanted to sell it. And I could pay guys on the elites, I could pay guys on the tour, or I could pay YouTubers, or I could do whatever, however when I put my money. If I had this phenomenal bait that worked good at certain situations, right? Because every bait works kind of good in certain situations. And you went out there and caught some fish on it, but didn't win the tournament, didn't make the top 10. But you caught, like, say you finished 11th. So you really
Yep.
weren't on film, right? And say you finished 11th all year long and you were never on TV, right? And you probably win Angler of the Year if that happens, right? But you're not really on TV. Or I could give it to like 5 or 6 YouTube guys. Not the goofy ones. Like, I would pick and choose. Like, well, I'm just saying, like, that's me personally. Like, I would pick, I mean, I would pick guys like you. I would pick, say, if I had a choice, I would pick Milliken.
Well, there's a reason why Tactical Bassin is
Okay.
probably one of the most lucrative brands in all of fishing, right? Like, they know what they're doing. They're good at pushing product, and they've got a great platform set up.
Right. So I would pick some of those guys, go out there and be like, hey, because a lot of these baits, there's like tournament winning baits, and then there's like baits that I want to go throw. Right.
Yeah.
It just is what it is. So I would go that route and go, hey, Todd, here's this bait. And I'm like, yeah, man, I'll smoke him for about 2 months in November and December. Well, dude, I'm not going to win any tournaments in November and December, but in November and December, I'm out there catching 70 a day, right? Well, I'm sorry, 99% of the fishermen, and even if I'm not fishing tournaments, aren't tournament fishermen, and they just watched you go out there and knew I could go out there and catch 70 a day on this bait. Dude, they don't care. They don't care if it came where it came from. They just, like you explained it, showed it. This is what it is. I would put my money there if it was me, because I think I could. I don't think I would have to pay. This is sad. I don't think I'd have to pay you as much, because I think the other is overhyped.
I think that could be potentially turning. I think
it's turning.
Yeah.
That's what I just said. I don't think I think there's a group of fishermen that don't want it to turn. I think the corporations are stuck in the middle and they don't really want to accept the fact. But a lot of these, I'm not going to get into that yet.
It is a big question. I think there's a lot of people out there that look at marketing and they always kind of chuckle because it's not from a business perspective. This is my MBA talking, right? Like it's such a, as much as marketers want to make it sound like it's an exact science, there's a lot of unknown that comes into marketing. Even in terms of how do you put the value on things like brand building, like to go back to what you were saying before about putting names on a stadium. I mean, I grew up in Chicago. The tallest building in Chicago, if I were to ask a lot of people on this podcast, what's the tallest building in Chicago? I'd be willing to bet a lot of people would say the Sears Tower. Well, the Sears Tower has been rebranded to the Willis Tower for like 15 years. I still call it the Sears Tower. So like there's a lot of value that goes into that name. The question is, what is that worth? I think to a tackle company, a smaller tackle company, having that brand recognition probably isn't as valuable as maybe to a national mega chain or insurance company or whatever it is. So I don't know how you put a value on that, but I think there probably are different marketing goals amongst all these different companies as to what their objective is to help grow their company. But it is a inexact science, I think, in a lot of cases. And especially when you start considering all the different marketing platforms evolving, like when you look at the fact a few years ago, not that long ago, radio was a huge way of marketing. I feel like radio is pretty much dead. TV kind of on the way out. Now you've got all the streaming platforms, you've got YouTube, you've got podcasts, and it's like what scares me as an individual, and with respect to like what I built on YouTube, is how long before YouTube is no longer relevant. Like, what's the next big platform? And as much as I would like to say I'm out there looking for it so I can transition to that, I'm not. Like, I'm kind of putting a lot of my marbles into the YouTube thing, because I know for me personally, I have never seen any other platform be as valuable to myself and my brand, if that's what we want to say. I mean, and that's just, from, like, if you look at social media platforms, I've been able to grow YouTube faster than the other platforms. If if I talk with the companies I've got affiliates with, I can track those sales. I can show companies that I'm actually bringing value. If I do a video on a product, I get feedback, right, from Tackle Warehouse or wherever that, yeah, product is sold. So it's really a very good platform for myself to be able to actually show value to my sponsors, which then helps generate more sponsors or more sponsor dollars. And it's just a good platform. I feel like, I mean, I've had discussions regarding like TV shows, and the amount of money that goes into a TV show to get it to air on a good network is ridiculous, because you got to buy that time, the production value. Like, we're talking like 500 to $1 million, right, for a 10 episode season. And it's one of those things where it's like, man, that is a ton of money. And if you're putting that show together and you go present that package to a sponsor, they're more willing to give that to you because they know how much that TV time costs. But I'm still sitting here going, I think you could spend a heck of a lot less and get the same sort of return by doing a high dollar series on YouTube or something along those lines.
No. Just say it. Just say what you really want to say, Matt.
What? That is what, how could I can't be more clear.
No.
What
the last
am I going
part,
to say?
The last part.
Say it.
Because this is what I'll say. Do you think I don't want to say your sponsors, I don't want to say my sponsors, do you think the people in the industry get that? Do you really? Do you really? What you just said was very important, because I can't agree with you anymore that you have gotten more from this than anything you've probably ever done in your career. So if that's the case, and I feel the exact same way, and it's not even close. What I'm saying is dude, because we were on there and they asked me the other day, like, how many Angler of the Years have I like won overall, like just in general? And I was like, dude, I have no idea. I have no clue. I was like, man, because me and my buddy Brent went on a streak of like 8 Angler of the Years in these like fall tournaments on Rayburn, right? Like, we were like won every one of them. What I'll say is no one ever really was like, after we won those, we're like, hey man, nice Angler of the Year, right? Or, hey man, great job last week when you won that event. Like, rarely. You had people probably congratulate you after your win, but I'm just guessing, but probably not as many as you thought. Like, you probably got a lot, but do people more talk about the win or something you did on YouTube?
Oh, dude, it's not a doubt. The YouTube is more valuable.
Correct.
Like, that's the scary part. But that's also how fast the industry's changed. 5 years ago, a win would sell a ton of product. I would argue now, I'm not going to say I put a video out and I'll sell as much product, but if I put 5 videos out, I might sell as much product. Plus, those videos live for a long time. So, you know, if you put a video out on your hybrid hunter, Todd, I'm sure you could sell it. There's an equation
Monday.
of how many videos you need to do that would equal like a tournament win on it.
It's coming out on Monday.
A new one?
Yeah, like so I went 2 days ago and I was like, man, I'm just gonna go do a hybrid hunter video. And yeah, it's coming out Monday. I'm working on it right now. But yeah, I went and did it. I agree. I agree.
I mean, you do that one video. If it hits and you get so many thousand views on it, 10, 50, 100,000 views, whatever it is, at some point that one video will sell more than a tournament win.
No.
That's where we've gotten to.
You're not convincing me of that. I know that. I don't know if everyone in the industry knows that.
Yeah, I mean, you think there's marketers out there that don't recognize that value?
I can't. There's not a number percentage wise. Yes, 1,000,000%, 100 million.
And are you saying the larger companies? Like I could see it being more of the small companies.
Yes. Yes.
I mean,
yes.
I can tell you right now, like with Core Tackle, I would, if I were looking to spend dollars, which I don't really have the dollars to spend, but if I were, what I would be looking for would be anglers that have a solid, like tournament anglers that have a good YouTube following. That's where I would be spending my dollars.
So same with me.
Yeah.
Would you professional anglers or? See, I wouldn't even go professional anglers because you just mentioned tactical casting.
I personally, I would probably like to take the gamble more on tournament anglers because if there is a win involved, I think you can get a bigger windfall potentially for your investment. But the one thing, and this is something I struggled with, I mean, you know, with all the changes that's been taking place, like with tournaments being as expensive as they are, there he is. Look at that good looking man right there.
Yeah.
So should it, you know, with a few years ago, right, or every year basically at this point, we analyze our overall expenses and say, are the tournaments worthwhile to fish, or should I potentially give up the tournaments, go head over heels into YouTube or TV or whatever, right? Like for me, I do think there is value for myself to say, I am a professional tournament angler. I've done it successfully for 13 years. I've got a pretty good track record. So for me, that gives me credibility. And this is my brain thinking, right? This is for me personally. That gives me credibility to do my YouTube channel, which I really try to make an educational channel. So I personally, if I'm giving out tips, I feel like I should be somebody, I need something that makes me feel like what I'm doing is justified. In the tournaments, having good tournament performance makes me feel like I'm justified to try to help other viewers catch fish. So that's what I would be looking for if I were spending marketing dollars.
I totally agree with you. Now, with that being said, I'm going to play devil's advocate just for a second. I agree with you. So let me ask you this. If I'm going to just make up people, God, I hope someone doesn't think I'm actually talking about someone because I'm just making stuff up.
You probably are talking about somebody.
Well, I'm maybe getting ideas from someone, you know, like maybe I have someone in my head, but this next person I don't have in my head. This one's made up. So what if you had a guy out there, 200,000 subscribers, right? Not a professional. You've watched him. He doesn't want to fish tournaments, doesn't care to, but puts out really good stuff. Like you think it's good. Like you're like, hey man, that's like he's saying all the right things. He's doing like, because we can tell, right? We can tell within a couple of minutes. I can watch one YouTube video and tell you within a couple of minutes, like fake. That worthless, right? That's probably why I don't watch very many YouTube videos. And then there's another guy with 300,000 subscribers, and you're like, okay, that's that guy. He's a fake. Or you got a professional fisherman with like 20,000 subscribers, right? Does good stuff, but it's only 20,000. Like this, they're going to get more. It's going to be, I'm just telling you, would it be very hard that you're trying to do the right thing, but this guy's only got this many subscribers. He's doing the right thing. And you're going to sell, a certain amount over here. This other guy who's not a professional fisherman has 200,000. He's doing the right thing. He's just not that guy. And he's selling like 3 times as much as that guy. And you're the owner of the company. I'm still never getting it to the other guy that has 300,000 because I just don't want my name. There is no way in this day and age I want my name associated with something bad. I can tell you that. I don't care how much money I lose on that deal. Because I just think that's bad. But so which one would you go for?
I think that kind of comes down to the individual company, right? Like,
I'm asking you, would you go?
Yeah. I'm still trying to figure out who you're talking about. But
I'm not talking about anyone.
Here's an example.
Really isn't talking about
I'm really not. I know. Okay, you have
joking.
a decision to make, and you can go both routes. I'm saying, would you go for the other guy who you thought was legit, but was a no-name?
As a company, if I'm, again, being that I've got a small tackle company at this point, I'm looking for people that I can relate to more, which are going to be more of your, hardcore fishermen putting out content that are geared towards catching fish versus it's entertainment. Because that's 2 separate categories to me. Like, there are a lot of entertainment fishing channels where it's really more about your lifestyle, right? Like, living that whole world, we're going to show everything. And I'm not saying that's wrong. I don't think there's anything wrong with that. But if I'm looking to sell more product, I think you'll sell more product with the individual that's actually showing how to use the bait. It's geared more towards this. We're going to show you how to catch them on this bait today. I think that tends to lead to more sales. It's probably not a better YouTube video. There's less views on that video, but I think your conversion to sales based on views is probably higher. So it kind of depends. I mean, there's tackle companies out there that
aspect.
Do what?
Good.
Yeah, I'll look at a different aspect of it. I mean, coming from a person that has a background in marketing that used to make these decisions for companies, Lose, Strike King, others, Gene LaRue, stuff like that. When we used to look at stuff, we did look at, who was the most bang for your buck? Who had that higher conversion from impression to actual sale. But at the same time, if somebody is getting, let's say, for instance, and I'm not using anybody as an example. This is a blanket example. Well, let's say, for instance, there's somebody with 500,000 subscribers, and they're averaging 50,000 to 100,000 views every single video that they pop out. And let's say, for instance, almost every single one of those is using a Lose rod and reel. They don't even have to say it, but they're using it, and they have a high retention rate. The more eyeballs you have on that particular rod and reel, especially if it's a flashier combo or something like that, the more of those you are going to sell down the line. Now, whether or not that was the initial sale, they're going to see it on you first, and then they might see it on another video, and then they might see it on another video, and to the point where they're like, hey, I want to buy that. That's awesome. Like, that is the coolest rod and reel I've ever used. So there is, even though we might not see the return on an immediate video, like one of Matt's videos, for instance, where he does a, let's say one on the core tackle hover rig, and he's talking about how this is a unique way to use it, and he's going to get some immediate sales off of that video. No questions asked. Every single video he pops out about it, he's going to see immediate return. However, when you start getting impressions in the 1 million, 2 million range every single video, there's a huge difference between the conversion rate over time than just the immediate. So like you have to balance everything out when you're looking at impressions and sales. It's not always just about what does this one video or these 2 videos do for me. It's what they do down the line. So
And
that's where
yeah.
it's an interesting standpoint.
That's what I was getting at. Like, I think there's a very much a need for both. I think the person that's getting
Mhm.
the huge views that may be more entertainment based, that's brand building. Like, that's over a
Absolutely.
period of time, that's probably going to do better than maybe direct sales off one video. And, I think there's a need for both. Absolutely. Like, and it just goes back to, again, like what we were saying before, like, it's so hard to measure some of that long-term stuff. Like a video on a specific bait that catches fish is much more measurable immediately. There's so many days after that video comes out where you see the majority of growth, and you can say these sales are attributed to that. The video that runs, maybe it doesn't pop off right away, but like for whatever reason hits the algorithm 3 months later, starts spiking up, and then continues on that trail for the next 2 years. It's like, it's just hard to say what sales 2 years from now are attributed to it, but that there's value to that video, huge value,
No doubt.
which is one of the reasons why I think YouTube is really valuable, is the fact that those videos are going to be found at some point. Could be 3 years from now, but somebody will probably watch a video that somebody puts out and be, they're gonna act on that video, whatever the call to action was. Versus like, TV show or prints, a lot of print ads, a lot of that stuff is out once and then gets kind of lost after it's aired. And I don't know. I mean, and we were talking before you got on, Andrew, about like the amount of money that gets spent, because I'm kind of exploring some TV type stuff right now. And I mean, it's just mind boggling to me, like the amount of dollars that are required, not necessarily to make the show, but to get the show on TV. Like it's
crazy.
And like, so when I hear these dollars, I'm like, how do you even ask for these dollar figures? But it's also that mindset. These companies are like, well, we're used to that. We know that if you want to buy a TV spot, these are the figures. So they're not coming at you with crazy amounts. They're coming at you with dollar figures that are what it costs to put a show on TV.
Well, that what you said, and then I want to get into this thing. You said that that's what they're used to, and I think when I talked to Paul from Black Rifle Coffee, he made a comment one time that I think that's what they're used to, right? So sponsors are like, okay, we have this much sponsor dollars, we're going to offer this to like these 8 or 10 anglers. And they come up with that, not because they need 8 or 10 anglers, but because that's what their budget allows them. And that's what they're used to offering them. But I don't think there's really any value, like reason of value to it, right? They don't really, it's just, well, this is what they offered them 6 years ago. And that's what these guys are getting used to getting paid. And I think that I was going to bring up the whole deal. I didn't want to bring up Scott Martin when you were bringing up the whole lifestyle video stuff. But if you were going to give out that bait, to certain people, getting Scott to promote it as opposed to one of us is probably a different deal. Like it's probably like the dollar amount is going to be massively different. And so I think you could possibly go 20 YouTubers compared to one of Scott having it.
But there's also a gamble there too, because you guys know as well as I do that you put a video out. I can't tell you, a lot of the videos that I finish and I'm like, I love this video. Like everything went great. They're the worst.
They're the worst.
Like without a doubt, they're going to be the worst performing ones. And then the ones I put together where I'm like, yeah, this is nothing special. Like, but I mean, there's good info and blah, blah, blah. It's like, why did that one pop off?
And here's the bad part.
There is a gamble. You never know which one's going to go or not, which is why one question I have for you guys, when you're talking sponsor dollars now and you're reaching out to companies, are you structuring, like this is something that I want to start doing, is structuring deals more based to views instead of saying, I'm going to give you, because a lot of my deals now are video based, right? Like the companies are more into the YouTube than anything else.
Well, you have to have that. That's
But is
that's
it?
the
But
problem.
like
Not everyone's there.
But is it easier now to structure something? I feel like it's a better not a sale. It's a better agreement for both parties to say, I'm going to make videos for you that hits a view figure, 100,000 views or whatever. And from that standpoint, what it means is if I put out 100 videos that get 1,000 views, I'm going to have to do 100, but I can guarantee that value to that company. Maybe I put one video out and it gets 100,000 views and they've got the same value out of that. Yeah. Like, I feel like that's a better way. I feel like the discussions I've had regarding that seem to go over better. Like the companies tend to feel more comfortable with that because they know they're going to get a set return versus I could do, 2 videos a year and they could be bad ones. Have you done any of that? Have you approached it that way at all?
I have a little bit. I mean, when it comes on the TV side of things, it's a whole lot different because everything's based off of views and impressions and how many networks you're rolling on and where you're exactly putting your content. I mean, as it sits right now, from Let's Fish TV, I have Bally Sports Southwest, Bally Sports Southeast, Bally Sports Florida, Sportsman's Channel, Waypoint TV, and a bunch of other streaming services. Okay, so that's just my TV platform. Then I have my personal YouTube. I've got Let's Fish TV YouTube. I've got Facebook, Instagram for both brands. So when you start looking at numbers and views and how you break them down, I literally have to break down every one of my views based off of every network that I'm on, every YouTube channel. I have to show impressions, views, and I still have to supply, let's say, for instance, for a Mercury, I still have to supply 2 videos a year. Well, those 2 videos can be on TV, they can be on YouTube, they can be on Facebook. I'm going to do them the best that I can to get them the most views that they can. I try to naturally and organically add them into certain places to make it where it's not so product pushed like you see on some other stuff. And I prove it to them. I show it to them and say, hey, I can do a video like this, like you normally get, or I can do it like that. And it brings you more views. It brings you more natural audience. And so Todd and I were joking about it earlier. We've seen a lot of anglers lately. You always see it in the fall. It's so funny because everybody's hunting and stuff. They've saved up all these photos and all these things, and they'll post like, hey, you need to throw this spinnerbait when it's 49-degree water temp and this is the brand spinnerbait, and this is, by God, what you need to have. And it's so product, like, it's not organic. It's like, this is like, I'm going to slam this in your face. You're just going to taste it. You're going to know what it is. And that day and age in social media is done. It is done. Yeah. And companies get absolutely, like, if that's what you're going to give me as a marketing director for a company, you might as well just not even post anything because there's no return on that.
Okay. Yeah. And by the way,
it actually pushes people away.
Yeah.
I agree. So I don't even know if I can do all this. And some of these.
Todd, are you going to comment on you got to comment on the comment you put up?
Well, yeah, that's what I was going to. But then I started reading all these comments while y'all were talking. And oh my gosh, dude, I don't know. Everyone, it's raining down here because these guys are freaking going off on all kinds. I can't even, there's no way we could even do it. It's going so many different ways. The tactical bass and stuff. Okay. And this is not against tactical bassing. I purposely do things a certain way on my YouTube because I always laugh like, hey, man, I have to go throw a swim jig. So I throw a Strike King swim jig. If that's all I did, right? If all you ever saw me do was promote baits from Strike King, which is what I do, but that's all I did was like what Andrew said. I sit in my boat and I talk about the swim jig, right? But I purposely, one of my best swim jig videos to this date is me in a Toyota on Rayburn, smashing them, like where I think I finished 4th in the event on that swim jig. And then I have another video in a tournament where I catch them on that swim jig, like made another top 10. Like I purposely put that stuff out there. When I did the Gunnersville series, right? It's me throwing a structure jig on boat docks and then throwing a pad perch. Literally all Strike King stuff and throwing a sexy dog. And I was leading after day 1 and second after day 2. I didn't do good on day 3. But what I'm saying is like I literally put that stuff on there during tournament time to show that, hey, I'm literally throwing the same baits I talk about. Because there's a bunch of Strike King stuff I don't talk about. Because like I can't use everything they have, right? I mean, I'm not going to go throw some drop shot bait that they catch smallmouth on up north. Like I'm not, I'll rather throw their filler worm because the filler worm works better than throwing like other stuff, right? So I mean, it in my opinion, tactical bassin, and I'm not saying them, but any of those guys could go out there. I could take a bait that I would never throw in a tournament with money on the line and go out there and make a video on it and catch some fish on it. And I could go to a pond, I could go to wherever, I could go do a lot of things, catch 3 or 4 fish and say, hey man, this bait's really good. But it's really not. Like we would never throw it in a tournament. And the only thing about tournament is when everything's on the line, right? I mean, our livelihood's on the line. We're going to go throw what we actually believe in. So like, that's why I don't mind doing that about those. So I think it's really based upon who it is, who's pushing the bait, and then how you push it. Because I rarely push a bait. I just say, this is what I'm throwing, and I'm going to go show you why. And not only can I show you in a video, I can show you in the results of the tournament, which kind of goes back to what you were saying, Matt, is that it is a good, the pro fisherman, the one thing in his back pocket is that he can go show results from what he's done. If he's got good enough results to show, right?
Yeah.
And you might hate the guy, you might think he's whatever, but you can't deny that part of it.
Yeah, I mean, and the like the whole idea of promoting baits is a really tough thing. Like, for me, I talk freely about sponsor baits and non-sponsor baits on my channel, and my sponsors actually are okay with that because they know if I only talked about Berkeley baits every time, it actually loses value because people would start to trust what it is that I talk about. And that's an issue sponsored anglers run into. Now, I mean, in this case, like with the quote, tactical bassin, I mean, tactical bassin has created like the most ideal model anybody in our industry could follow. And the reason for that is because they are sponsored. Like that comment right there is not true. That like, it makes it sound like they're not. Tactical bassin has just created a platform that allows them to freely promote all products, but don't think that they're not getting paid by companies to promote those products. They're actually triple dipping. And this is why I say it's like the most ideal. They're getting paid to promote products. They're getting affiliate deals with Tackle Warehouse. And they, in a lot of instances, are creating tactical bassin baits where they're getting a percentage and a royalty. So like, in my opinion, they have done it absolutely the right way because they are able to tap into all of those. But it comes down to the fact that they created a channel that is so valuable from an information standpoint. Matt and Tim are excellent fishermen. I think we all know that by now. And they've got the fans out there trusting in their opinion. But it's almost like they're a sponsored angler by everyone. And from that standpoint, like they've got, they can talk about everything at that point. But
and like I said, it wasn't on them. It was more or less on the fact of, I just think, even when I asked you earlier about like, who would you take? I don't really think just because you're the best pro fisherman out there with the YouTube channel or a guy, I just think it's how you present it all. And if you can show some type of validation and why you're doing it, I think you can have credibility that way.
And that,
however
that
you want to do it.
I mean, and that is one of the issues I think that's hurting tournament fishing right now is there's just the idea that you can't trust the tournament angler with what they say they caught the fish on, unless you see them using a bait. Like you can't, like you see these random stagnant posts on Instagram and Facebook, you know, I caught them on this today, and you're like, well, let me see the video, because I don't know. I don't think that's what I saw you using on live. And it loses it takes value away from us as tournament anglers.
Okay. So I'm gonna do this. I'm gonna try. This is y'all are gonna have to talk for a while because I'm gonna be speed clicking here. I'm asking everyone that's listening right now. I want them to comment on how should we phrase this question? Do you buy baits because of and this isn't fair because these are YouTube people, probably watch YouTube. Is it pro anglers? Is it YouTube? Is it friends? Is it Instagram, social media? Like if you just write in the comments like YouTube, pro angler, whatever, I'll start clicking on them. I'm very interested to see what most of these guys where that happens, right?
I mean, I think it's a
why don't we
combination of
ask
a lot of
that?
things. Yeah.
You know, I'll start clicking.
Yeah, Brandon makes a good point. Live footage. I don't care what anybody says. Watching the live coverage, I don't care what tournament organization it is. If I see them out there fishing a $100,000 tournament, $200,000 tournament, and that bait is something that they're catching fish on, I have more of a belief that it's probably pretty good. But if they're willing to bet what they're doing right then in that particular condition, like it's for instance, like if I was watching
hold on.
Matt up at what?
Hold on. Trial and error on my own. Yeah, but you had to have, like, did you just go into the store, KCT? What do you mean trial and error on your own? Did you had to have seen the bait maybe somewhere? That's why did you just randomly go in the store? Go ahead. That's what I wanted to clarify.
No, but like, it's like watching Matt at the Mississippi River. Like I know Matt spent countless hours and days and days and days on the Mississippi River over the course of his life. And if he goes out there in a tournament and wins a tournament throwing a Berkeley swim jig and this particular color with this particular trailer, and I can physically see him on live coverage using that particular bait, I'm probably going to buy it, or at least buy the trailer, I'm going to be dissecting everything that he's doing on that particular, live that's going on. Now, on the flip side of that, if Matt's going to have a YouTube channel and he says, hey, in this particular condition on the Mississippi River, I like throwing this, 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 and this, I might still buy something out of that. But I personally, as somebody that watches way too much fishing stuff, if I see somebody catch something on a bait and like multiple fish, especially big fish, and we can, at this point, we can tell if anything's staged, and I can tell it's not staged and he's smoking them on it, I'm going to say, hey, I either have one of those or I'm going to get one of those. And I'm a tackle snob. You can ask Todd, like, I have way too much tackle. But that's just
you can never have too much tackle.
No, I have way too much tackle. Ask my wife. She
no such thing. It just means you need a bigger house.
No doubt. I do need that.
What once again, I know some guys are saying off what they do, but like, does that mean you just go into a tackle store and get on Tackle Warehouse and go through Tackle Warehouse stuff? Like,
yes,
because I'm a guy who
do that.
That's fine, but that's what I want to know, because I buy baits based off my own style. I get that. Like, I'm the same way a lot of times, but what does that mean exactly? Like, are you just going into random tackle stores? You go to Tackle Warehouse. What do you actually do? Because
I do that all the time. Like
I know you do. I'm asking them.
But I mean, I think other people do the same thing.
Like, that's what I want to hear it from
all the new products. I look at all the new products and I'm like, oh, what's that? And then I look at the site, like, because I always have to look at the dimensions, because they take a picture or something and it looks amazing, and then you realize it's like 1.2 inches long, and I'm like, I ain't never gonna use that. What's going on with that? But
I love micro.
Send me the link for that. I want to buy some of that.
There's some Japanese stuff that I've used over the years that I'd order something, be like, man, that's going to be awesome. And then you get it, and it's like either way bigger or way smaller than what you were actually expecting.
Yeah, that's the problem with like I love bait shop shopping where you just like I love to go into a local shop and sometimes you're blown away by the stuff that's in there because you can actually look at it, hold it, and feel it versus like I'm really guilty of, like you hear women shoe shopping online. Like there's times all of a sudden I'll just, for whatever reason, I find myself on Tackle Warehouse and the next thing I know, I've been on there for like an hour with like a couple $100 in my cart of all random stuff that looks good. And then, yeah, you order it and half of it, you're like, oh, this is not what I was expecting. And I know you can send it back, but I never do. I'm always like, well, now I've got it. Maybe I'll need it.
That's how I am. Like they send you that return and I'm like, man, like I really don't need this or that. And I'm like, and then I forget and then I just keep it.
I've got buddies that'll like order a pile of stuff for a tournament and then they go to the tournament, don't use any of it, and then they send it all back. Like when they get back. And I was like, man, I've never once really thought about that. I like to add to my collection.
I mean, I ordered I actually ordered a few of those Fritz sides whenever I saw John Cox win with it. I mean, you know what I'm saying? Like, I mean, I order everybody's stuff. I use everybody's stuff. Like, I want to know what the latest and greatest is. Todd doesn't do that as much. Honestly, of us three on this little podcast, Todd, you want to talk about somebody that's not necessarily just brand loyal. He just fishes what he fishes, and he doesn't like give a crap what everybody else is doing. He just does his thing and just whatever. And it's the most annoying thing because I'll be like, "Hey Todd, have you tried this bait?" And it's like, he's like, I don't throw that crap." He's like, "It's not that it's not good, and it's not that it." I could almost sound like Todd. It's not that it's not good, and it's probably catches fish, but like I can catch them my way and with 25-pound line and a flipping stick and like, I mean.
Hey man, Spinning Rod Todd's been doing a lot more stuff lately. Hey, but what I'll say about that is when I was for all those years, and I guess this is why I just design baits now. I had all those baits that no one else had with Strike Pro and stuff, and so it for a long time, and so I just continually kept on like doing out of the box stuff that I just like, man, maybe I'm not that good of a fisherman, but if I can just give me because I always laugh about the whole. I hate it when the water's muddy and up and it's all in the bushes. And everyone just goes to flipping or throwing a spinnerbait and you can't do anything like unique or different. I hate that, right? Because to me, it's just everyone's in the same boat. And I was like, man, I made a living out of throwing stuff no one else had for years. And so I'm a big guy when it comes to that. On the flip side, though, I made a red eye video the other day and we kind of got into this, like the whole rattle trap deal to where like rattle trap. Tell me, Andrew, how many colors does rattle trap have?
Oh, I can't. I don't even remember what it was. Like when I was sponsored by them, I want to say it was like over 100 at that time. I mean, it was ridiculous how many they had.
And they all work. They all work. And I'm telling you, just so when I made this, I don't know if everyone around the country knew what I was talking about. So now I got Andrew on. That on Rayburn or Toledo, when you go more Rayburn, dude, a random color at any given day will smoke the so-called best color. And I'm telling you, it happens all the time. A Coingler gets in your boat and is just out there throwing it around in like 5-pounder, 6-pounder, or whatever. And then
there
zero
was
the next day.
There was a year, it was a couple of years back, that a solid pink rattle trap was beating everything. Rayburn red, shad colors, gold, chrome blue, like pink. Solid pink trap was just destroying everything. And then the next year, like guys are like, man, I can't catch them on this. They'd pull it out and be like, man, what are you throwing? And they don't catch anything. It's like, man, this killed them last year. I mean, it's just that lake is hilarious because at any given time you could, but that is also why whenever I used to, especially when I used to trap there all the time, I'd have 6 or 7 colors tied on, and you just randomly pick one up and just be like, oh, I caught them on this today. You know, and the next day you catch them on a completely different color. So it's just I don't know, man. You can have a million colors and it doesn't really matter.
Okay, so that's my mindset when I get to these lakes, is that you can do all this stuff and buy all this tackle and buy all the colors of everything, right? And there's nothing wrong with that. Now if it's your home lake, it's different, but we're traveling. So Andrew's like, man, you're just doing this. I'm like, well, I can't go out there and throw 100 rattle trap colors trying to find the one that they're going to bite that day. Right. So I'm like, okay, let me just get 1 or 2 or 3 that I have confidence in and go with them that tend to work. So when I go to these lakes, I'm not sitting there trying to like dial something in that I think's not okay. How do I say not dialable in?
Dialable.
Not dialable in. Right. Because it's impossible. Right. Like it could change by the tournament day. So I'm just like, all right, I'm just going to go with what I know and just hope it works. So yeah, like a lot of times I'm like, I'm not going to sit there and like fret over Scott Martin and some of those guys when he roomed with them. They're, man, hey, are you throwing co-anglers are the worst too. Co-anglers are the worst.
No, Scott was the worst.
Scott's bad.
I love Scott to death.
But
Scott would be like, hey, what color jerkbait are you throwing? I'm throwing like just this like chrome blue looking one. He's like, but like, what color blue is on the back exactly?
Yeah. Does it have flake in
like,
there?
Is there flake, or is it like a baby blue or like a dark blue? Like is it got a white belly, or is there like just a little bit of orange? I'm like, Scott, it don't matter, man. Like just throw a jerkbait that's shad colored. And he would literally order like 27 different jerkbait brands and all these different colors, and he'd be like almost like a microscope being like, okay, oh wait, no, that's not it, and be like, oh, that one's it, and he'd catch and be like, oh, see, I knew it. I'm like, what are you doing?
Well, the co-anglers,
that's how you end up with way too much tackle.
No
Which
doubt.
again is not a real thing, but you end up with a lot of tackle.
well,
I've really cut my tackle buying down. I try to, at least.
mine's way down, but that I don't know how many co-anglers are like, hey, what color, bait is that you're throwing? I'm like, I don't know, green something. And they're like, what do you mean? I'm like, dude, it's well, I mean, does it have red flake in it? And I'm like, I don't even know. Like they're all mixed in there. They all look green to me. Cause I'm like, I'm fishing 20 foot of water, man. I promise you. Cause I always laugh. Cause they're like, hey, this is the only bait they bite, man. This is good. I'm like, well, guess what? I've said this a bunch. There's 200 people in this tournament. Watch what happens at weigh-in. There's going to be a whole bunch of fish brought in by all to it, and I promise you those guys weren't throwing the same bait you're throwing. So yes, I think certain baits are better than others. Don't get me wrong, but I'm just saying it's not like they won't bite all these other like colored worms or whatever it might be. I
remember getting in Todd's boat one time, Matt, and I've told this story before, but we were sight fishing, and I lost a bait, and I was like, man, I need another bug, rage bug. He's like, oh, just get one out of there. I got a whole bag of them. I'm like, oh, okay, cool. And I get down there, and there's a Ziploc bag, and it's a gallon bag, and it literally is like baits just threw up in there. There's so many different colors of green pumpkin and watermelons and stuff, and I'm like, I don't know which one to throw. And he's like, just pick one. Just put one on your hook. I'm like, I don't remember what the last fish ate. Maybe he said, just put one on your hook. Grab one and put it on there. And I did, and I caught one. And then it was like you didn't even want to look. You just grab one and put it on.
Yeah.
And
they're all eventually they all fade together anyways.
You know what's taught me why it doesn't matter, and live scope is like the number one thing that like reassures that. You can go throw the best bait in the world, but when you're not actually thrown by a fish, it's irrelevant. And I'm just saying, so like a lot of that, a lot of those times it's like, hey man, this bait works really well. Yeah, there's 40 of them down there. One of them's probably gonna bite. Now,
oh yeah,
that's starting to get less and less now. Now we're starting to realize sometimes there's 40 down there and none of them bite.
Yeah,
probably because they've all been freaking hammered on by the guy before you.
You want to know the biggest trick and hack of all time. Just turn it off, and then you don't even know they're there.
I tend to do that a lot. I do that a lot. Dude, that thing, I still like, I mean, I try to make it work. You get to a point you're trying to force it. And at that point, I'm like, this isn't working for me. And I just turn that puppy off. Like, you got to. Do you guys actually, you know how everyone's like makes the case now that with everyone using forward facing sonar, that the bank's the place to be? Do you feel like that there's been any improvement on bank fishing?
No, it's the exact opposite. I've had this discussion 3 times this week with people.
3 times?
At least 3 times. No, and when and most of them are like starting to believe, because I've been saying this for a year now, maybe 2. Okay, so I will. And Andrew laughs if I say this. Like, I'm gonna admit when I was wrong, and I was way wrong. I was like bad wrong. Like, you won't hear me say that very much, but I was one of the. I was so wrong in this take that I thought the bank fishing would become phenomenal, and I think it has done nothing but decline since. I'm not saying there's a coincidence or a correlation, but I think the bank is the worst I've ever seen, and I'm to the point I 100% think that it's live scope. Even though I have a theory, but I think that it has actually. I thought it was going to make it way better, and it's made it way worse.
What's the theory?
My theory is this: those fish, there's always a group of fish on the bank and on the shore, and I think they've all gone all over the place. They'll go to the bank, they'll go offshore, they go wherever. Okay. I don't want to hear about this. Like, I heard so much stuff about table rock and about how there's not gizzards up there and there's not bait fish up there, and that's why they're not up shallow. I saw plenty of gizzards everywhere. I saw perch up there shallow. I'm tired of listening to the whole thing about bait. Bait is great, right? God, this is going to take forever. We used to have a bunch of giant, when we used to catch a bunch of these giant bags of fish at times, there was no bait around. Like, they wanted to be there because maybe the bait eventually came around, but there was no bait when we were catching them a lot of times. And then the guys are like, oh, I caught all these fish out there and there was a bunch of bait. You had to find the bait to find the fish. Well, those fish you did. But I mean, I can go out there and show you bass swimming around out in the middle of the ocean right now, and there's freaking no bait around. They're just swimming around there and you can catch one. So I'm not this big believer that there has to be bait. There is bait scattered across these lakes, freaking from one end to the other. There's bait in 30 foot of water. There's bait shallow. There's bait everywhere. A bass can decide where it wants to go. It does not have to follow the bait. The bait's everywhere. What I think has happened is that pressure is like the number one thing. People have no idea what it really does, right? Like, no one really knows what pressure does, from not the pressure from the environment. I'm talking about us as fishermen. We all thought, okay, all these boats are going to go out deep and they're going to go up shallow, right? They're going to go back up to the bank. The bank fishing is going to be left alone, and it's going to be easier to catch those fish. I personally think those fish travel back and forth all the time. What I think happens is those fish that were out there swimming around in no man's land, doing whatever, were being left alone for months at a time. So there's 4-pounders out there chilling, doing whatever. It's not really bothered by anything. Then all of a sudden, now there's a boat out there jacking with it, right? And it gets caught, right? That would never have got caught for the last 5 months. Well, I think that 4-pounder eventually would have made its way up to the bank. You're going down there with a freaking chatterbait, and you catch that 4-pounder because it hadn't seen a bait, because we just haven't put it by it. And now it's up there shallow and it gets caught. I think that 4-pounder either does 2 things now. One, it doesn't go up to that bank anymore, because I think they do feel pressure. And if it was me, I'm not going to go up to the bank in 5 foot of water, right? I'm just going to push deeper and further out into the middle of the lake and get away from more and more boats. I'm sure not going to go run up to the shoreline. And the other is, say it does go up there, and it was, and last week it got caught, and it's sitting there and a bait comes by, and it's like, yeah, whatever. I was just caught last week. I'm not going to bite now. I just think there's a lot more fish being caught, and I just don't think they want to go up to the bank as much.
I just think it's interrupted their migration. I just think it's interrupted their migration, how they move, and it's agreeing with what you're saying. Whether they're caught or not, they are feeling pressure in this migration route where they always take. Because a fish migrates just like a bird or anything else. There's some fish that live shallow. Some fish that live shallow 10 months out of the year. There have been enough fish research studies where they've tracked fish. There was an 8-pounder on Toledo Bend, for instance, that lived on the same stump, literally, like they had a mark on it, that lived on the same stump for 10 months and had been caught 3 times because they turned the tag in. It was on the same exact stump 3 times, and only 2 months out of the year it would go deep is during the wintertime. Just like there's fish that live deep all year long.
Yeah,
but there are fish that cycle in and out. But the deal is we've interrupted their migration route going in and out, and I think it has forced more fish off the bank and them to just change their migration. The pressure has.
Has the bank gotten better or worse on Rayburn?
No, I fish the bank all the time. No,
or every lake.
Fish the bank all the time.
Every lake we go to has gotten worse. Every single lake I have gone to in the last 5 years, it has gotten worse and worse. So I 1,000,000% disagree with that. It has gotten worse, and it's not I always used to get mad about people talking about sight fishing, like, oh, okay, or like when people talk about, oh, there's not as many fish in the lake as there once was, or they're like, oh, they're still there, y'all just don't know how to catch them. This happened a lot of times on Toledo Bend and Amstead and these lakes. And I go, hey man, they're going to do one thing every year. One thing for sure, they're going to go up on the bank and they're going to freaking get on a bed. And when Toledo was phenomenal and everyone was catching 10-pounders, I could go down the bank and I could show you a 10-pounder every single day for 2 months out of the year. I mean, sometimes multiple 10-pounders. We caught them. They're all over the bank. And people caught them all year long. Like, it was phenomenal. Everyone's catching 10-pounders all throughout the year. Then all of a sudden, Toledo stops putting out 10-pounders, and you can go down the bank and never see another 10-pounder because they don't live there. It happened on Amstead. It happens on all these lakes. You can actually see them. When you go on Table Rock, you don't have to go catch those fish. I can put it on high, and I can go down the bank on Table Rock. And guess what happens? You don't see any bass. It's not that they're not biting your bait. They're not up there. And so when people are like, oh, and it was kind of like my comment about if you just throw a bait out there, it's a lot easier to catch a fish when you're throwing by one. Those fish aren't up there shallow. They're not up there like they used to be. And the only other thing it could be, the only other thing is that lakes they're not new anymore.
Yeah.
Right. So like all these lakes got built at a certain time, they were all built back in, like, a lot of them were like built in the 60s and 70s. And maybe they're all just kind of hitting that life cycle. But I don't really believe that either, because you got places like Rayburn and certain lakes that fluctuate. So they kind of act like new lakes. Every time Rayburn goes up, like the best lakes in the country, some of them are the ones that fluctuate just because they get new growth and they go up and down, and they have good years and bad years. But that's what makes the good years good and the bad years bad, is because of the fluctuation.
What do you think, Matt?
I mean, I tend to agree. Like, my theory is pretty similar to what Todd was saying. I don't think the bank has gotten better. That's for sure. I think my thought is there's a small, like, if you're talking about like summer months or warm water period, you've got a handful of fish that tend to live shallow year round. They're the resident fish. But then that was always kind of replenished by fish that were not actively feeding. And then when they wanted to feed, they'd slide in and get up on the bank, and set up on a piece of ambush structure. But now those fish are being targeted offshore, whether that's, just on a point. I mean, it doesn't necessarily have to be a long distance away, but they're being targeted in those areas where they were inactive. They were not feeding, but they were presented with an easy meal because somebody dropped a bait on their head and they ate it because it's an easy meal, and then they get caught, and then that throws them out of that. It either throws them out of the cycle and they're not as willing to go shallow, or they go shallow and they're just not nearly as catchable because they were caught, right? So they're just a more timid fish. So in either case, it doesn't make the bank any easier. I don't know which that is, but I'm pretty sick of people at this point saying that the bank, it's only a matter of time and the bank's going to turn, get so much better because of forward facing sonar. And I don't see that happening myself, but
I got something for you.
I'm curious what your take was.
I agree with you, Matt. I got something for you. So like we used to have all these, like Lake Nat used to be I learned how to frog fish on Lake Nat. And I had all these pads. And when I first went there, and we told no one about it for years. I mean, years. And we were catching you get 50, 60 blowups a day. It was phenomenal. I don't think I've tried it like once a year. I'll go try it and almost never get a bite. And everyone's gonna be like, oh, pressure this. No one's in these pads. The pads are perfect. Like you can tell if someone's going up in the pads and fish, pads are perfect. Like no one goes up there and does. I never see anybody do it, right? They're not up there anymore. I don't know why. Like why all of a sudden did they stop using these pads? But what happens when you're on the bank and you get a bite, right? Say you're flipping on the bank and you get a bite, and say you're shaking a fish off. What does it do? What does every one of them do?
Swims out deep.
Swims out deep. Every single one of them. I don't know what this really means, but the thing about it, every single time you flip there, none of them ever go shallow, right? They all get your bait and they take off. They all swim to deep water, most of them, which I think is kind of interesting because do they do that when they're actually feeding? Like, do they go eat a perch on the bank and then, or like in the grass and eat it and then take off out to deeper water? Or they just sit there? Most of them you would think sit there. I don't know why they do it with our bait, but I'll say this. When the pond we used to have that I used to live at when I first got married, we lived with at this little small house that people from church let us live there for like a year or two. Anyways, I helped like mess with their pond. So we had all these big ones in this pond and it was phenomenal. And I stopped fishing for them because I started feeding them. Because I was always out there throwing stuff at the perch. They had a perch feeder. I wish I had all this on video. I think I'd have 500,000 subscribers because it was the best. It was the coolest thing ever in the world.
That pond was amazing. I got to witness that pond. That was awesome. Yeah.
Right. So they had a dock. They had a little feeder, and it threw out perch right there. And the big giant perch would come up, and bass every once in a while maybe would explode on them. But it got clear one year, and I was throwing all of our scraps from food. Like I went down there every day. So like we'd have a bunch of like, say we ate some chicken, we have chicken stuff, and I'd go out there and throw it out there for all the perch. Right. So I was doing that one day and I threw like some old pizza out there and this bass explodes on this like freaking half thing of pizza, like the crust. And I was going, freaking stupid thing. So I started kind of like paying more attention to what I was doing. And I like these bass would come out there and I started like throwing like old chicken and old, like anything that got old, and they were eating it. So then I shot this hog one time. The hogs had gotten out there and I shot this hog and I freaking quartered it all up, the hog and everything, and kept it all and froze it. And so I just started slicing off pieces of that hog, right? Like big chunks. And I'd slice off, and every day I'd go out there, thaw them out, and they would come up to me. I did this every day. And like, there was about 7 or 8 of them. They were like 5 to 7 pounders. I had one 9-pounder. She wouldn't do it. She wanted me to actually catch a perch and then like drop it over to her. And she would, like, I'd have to catch it and then like retie it on there without a hook, and I'd drop it to her and she'd eat that one, which is a whole different story. But those other ones, those 5 to 7 pounders, would eat all that stuff, and they would eat until they got done eating, and then you'd see them like swim off. Like they would eat until they were done, and then they'd swim back out to deep water. So like, I don't know if those fish, I don't know really what that means, other than the fact that maybe we viewed the shallow water that they don't really want to live there as much as they want it. Like maybe they felt all right living up there for 7 years.
Yeah.
And now they
it's all about feeding. I mean, in my opinion, one of the keys to successful fishing is identifying high percentage feeding locations, which are really just pieces of structure that the fish can use to pin the bait fish into, right? So, if as you get shallower, there's less places for the bait fish to go. Meaning, if you're in 3 feet of water, the bait fish can only pretty much go left or right. They can't go down, they can't go up. And, I think that's one of the reasons why we see so many high percentage pieces of structure as being like good no matter where you're at in the country, whether that's a ledge, whether it's a bluff, whether it is whatever. It really comes down to what can the fish utilize to pin their forage into and what can they use to corral their forage more efficiently. And shallower water is a great way for a fish to limit the direction that the bait fish can go. So I agree. I mean, that's something I've always thought about. You're going down. I mean, on Rayburn. Yeah, was it 2 years ago when we started there? I don't know if I think I was catching spawning fish or fish that were just starting to move up. I mean, the water was really cold still, but they would show up at like 12:30, and I'd have a couple hours to catch my fish, and they were in about a foot of water. And I mean, you'd pitch in there, and every one of them, like I missed 3 or 4 because by the time I set the hook, they were to the boat. And it was like they get their bait and they were going right to the deeper channel behind me. And I think that is a big part of it. Like, I don't know that, I think they're up there to feed a good percentage of those fish up there to feed. They get their meal. They've got it in their mouth. They're ready to go sit on the bottom in deeper water or suspend somewhere and digest and not burn calories.
I don't think they go up there anymore, though.
Well, I think there's less fish going up there because they're disturbed out in deeper water. I'm just simply stating I agree with what you're saying. When they get a meal in shallow water, whether it's your bait or they get a bluegill, they get it and they go out to where they feel more comfortable and safer, which is probably in a little deeper water.
One thing I will say to that, though, that and Todd, I know you know this, or at least you've seen it. The one big question mark I have of that is like when you get a bluegill bed, okay, and you get 2 or 3 fish that are using that bluegill bed, big bass, and a lot of times they're bigger than normal. They sit on them, and they'll just eat every dang bluegill that's there. They never leave. You can go there at any time of day, and they're still
not
there.
anymore.
I know, but you know what I'm saying?
Like, yes, no.
It used to happen.
It used to happen. So, like I said, I rarely make comments about stuff about. I used to always laugh about all this, like all the fishermen, and I still to this day love it. That like LiveScope has made all those fishermen on TV all them years look stupid because they all said what was going on underneath the water, and they were basically all wrong. They were all wrong. Everyone that thought they knew what was going on was all wrong. I don't say any of this based on like personal experience of going, oh, the lakes aren't that good. I used a little bit of personal experience, but I'm visually going down the bank. And we used to go like, so what Andrew was talking about on Rayburn, that's what I used to do is instead of frog fishing, I would just put it on high and go down on certain areas where I knew perch spawned. And I would find these perch beds and I'm like, oh, there's a 6, a 4, and a 3. All right. Oh, that one has like 8 big ones on it. Oh, that one has like, and I never threw at any of them. I knew where all the perch beds were, as many as I could find, and there'd be big ones on them. I did this for years. I have not done that in the last 5 to 6 years because I could go down there and I never see any fish on them. There's no fish on them.
Perch are still there.
Perch are still there, but bass aren't.
But
is that a function though of more anglers doing the same thing?
No, because nobody ever did it.
Doing that. No one's doing that.
I mean, they do it on.
You don't think?
Like
I mean, in our tournaments, guys are doing it.
No,
I mean, in all the tournaments, there's always guys doing it.
No one's doing that.
No one did that on
bluegill beds are the big hidden secret.
Go try to find bluegill beds on Rayburn. Go try to do that and tell me what happens.
It's hard.
You'll run out of batteries.
Yeah,
they're not where you think they are. They're not set like you go to other places and they're on a road bed or things that are easy. No. Rayburn, they're random, and I had to like learn them. I came across them over years and years of going, oh, I wonder why they build one here. Dude, I mean, it's very easy to tell. No one's doing that stuff. No one was even throwing a frog.
I will say, I think a frog has gone downhill drastically over
Because
the
they're not
last
up there.
5 years. Like, man, I mean, a frog used to be such a killer bait, and it's like I probably the last 5 years, and I got a frog tied on in every event, just for that 1 or 2 right casts. And I mean, I probably get. I can't remember the last good fish I caught on a frog.
I caught him in the open at Toledo, but I had to do it for hours I made anyone in my private channels watched it. I had to do it for hours every day to catch 1 or 2. But I mean, both days, my day 1 I had a 5, day 2 I had a 6.
I do. Somebody just mentioned that frogs are on the endangered species list. I mean, I do know that frog populations are dwindling. Like, a lot of the lakes up by me, like I remember getting to the boat launch as a kid, and it was just like you just heard them bullfrogs, right? Just everywhere you went, and it's like I don't ever hear that on the water anymore. Like I remember throwing a frog, and like routinely throughout the day having bullfrogs eat the frog.
I said this for years though. That's why I came up with the pop and perch, because I was like, we just talked about the bluegill beds and all that stuff. I was like, in all my years, I've never seen a bass eat a frog.
See, dude, I'm telling, like, I agree with that.
I know they do.
I agree with it, but I'm telling you, I could take you to lakes where I would catch 5 big bullfrogs on my frog. I've had bass eat bullfrogs going for my frog.
No. I'm saying they will.
And I haven't had that happen in 6-7 years. And I could go to those same lakes, the frogs aren't there.
But in the pads, so if you're going to fish the pads, one, we just talked about brim beds, right?
That's in pads. I'm talking in
No,
pads.
I got you. Hold on. So there's a couple things going on. One, the brim beds were a giant deal for frog fishing. Like that's what we did, right? And it wasn't a frog. They thought it was brim. Then we throw it in the shad spawn. They think it's a shad, 100%.
Yeah.
And then in the pads, they actually make a ton of brim beds in the pads. But let me ask you this. Of anyone throwing over scum, like that grass, or any in the pads, what is everyone looking? Is anyone actually looking for frogs, or they're not looking for anything. What are they listening for?
Bluegills. Pop.
Yeah. Always. So I think 90% of it's the bluegill stuff, not the frog stuff. And I
agree, dude. But the Mississippi River, you're fishing cheese flats and duckweed, and I mean there used to be frogs everywhere, and you just don't.
I will agree with Matt in this. In Texas, it's a.
I agree. You don't hear.
I do think it's a gizzard shad and a bluegill thing. I don't think it's a frog thing down here, but up north, like it is a frog thing up in his like Mississippi River, some of that stuff. Like they literally ate. Like there be frogs this big like, everywhere.
As a kid, I would go out, walk the shoreline, like not far, like 100 feet, and I'd have a bucket full of little leopard frogs and all kinds of little frogs. I mean, that's what we did as kids, right? Now, when I see a frog, like, and I'm with my boys, it's like, holy crap, a frog! Like, it's just not the same.
Yeah.
And they are. I've heard a lot of the issue with frogs is they're like turning sex. Like they're going from male to female.
Did you see what I just put?
Kyle, you're right on it. Thanks for the support.
Did you see that?
Yeah, that's why I said that. Okay, I have like a lot of frogs are like changing sex somehow. I don't know how that's working, but I mean, I've got some lakes that have I think they're called like 2-year tadpoles. They're tadpoles that take like 2 years to like mature into a frog. And there's some lakes where that is the absolute deal. They'll get in these shallow mud flats, and there used to be thousands of them. The bottom would just be moving in these. I mean, they're giant tadpoles, and now they're gone.
Is that
true? I
mean,
I don't know, but I wouldn't argue with. I can't. That's probably not good for the frogs.
I have not ever heard of one good thing coming from spring.
You don't
I'm
talk
gonna
to
give you
water
an
skiers.
alternate opinion. I'll give you an alternate opinion here, and maybe I'm wrong here. Maybe I'm right. I don't know. I wonder if when they go spray, let's say for instance Toledo Bend, because I live there and it is what it is. They sprayed a few years back, like 5 years ago or whatever it was. And I mean, they sprayed every ounce of grass on the lake, hay grass, hydrilla, everything. They literally sprayed everything.
Yard grass, people's yards.
Yeah, yard grass. It didn't matter. They sprayed everything.
That's a thing.
And
I'm serious.
The fishing obviously fell off immensely. Okay. And now we're starting to get grass back in a lot of places, but the fish aren't there now like they used to be.
We gotta be careful what we talk about. I'm off limits on Toledo.
Oh, okay. All right. Well, as a general statement, though, what my whole point of this is when they spray these lakes like that, I wonder if the fish realize, like, hey, there's chemicals in the water up there. I don't need to be up there, and then it changes the way they move, no matter what else grows up there. Because I know, like Lake Nacogdoches, like what you're talking about, Todd, with the pads and stuff. Like the pads used to be amazing there. The grass used to be like the place to catch them all the time at Nacogdoches. Rayburn used to be like that, and then they sprayed the crap out of Rayburn. I really think that a generation of bass, let's just say a 3 or 5 year gap of bass, they spray enough, they kill enough stuff. The fish aren't just going to magically go back there when they knew it was crappy when they left, when everything was dying off. Like, I wonder if those fish just like, I'm not going back there. Why would I go back there?
Well, I think so when they sprayed, and I don't care. I know people are commenting on here. I'm not even going to read. No one will ever convince me otherwise. When they sprayed, there were all those bushes in Lowe's Creek. All them bushes died. See, just like Andrew. We killed Andrew. Oh, he's back. Okay. I thought we killed Andrew. I thought he got sprayed.
You sprayed him.
Yeah, someone sprayed him over there at Toledo. Look, man, hey, you got to watch them over there, Andrew. They coming for you.
No doubt.
They killed all the bushes. They killed people's yards. It killed so many things. But when you spray that stuff on the bank, it's why the stuff didn't grow. It took years, in my opinion, because it settled into the ground.
Yep.
So let me explain for y'all, if anyone doesn't know anything about someone's going to get on here.
Let's talk about Rayburn, because Rayburn's a similar place.
Well, I got something about the Toledo Bend thing and Matt. I'll stop that. If we're on live and it's literally live and it's public, are we not allowed to talk about Toledo?
I mean, I just think we should stay away from the subject.
We will. I have no problem with that.
Yeah.
But I'm literally asking an honest question. Is that we're live, right? I mean, we couldn't get in trouble, right?
I mean, I would think I could get in trouble for talking about Toledo Bend in any form or fashion. Yes.
Even publicly?
I mean, I think there's a difference between engaged in a public conversation and getting public information.
I'm just asking. We won't
talk about Rayburn or something.
Okay. So
stop getting me in trouble, Todd.
Well, I know I was honestly asking, making sure.
I'll have to call Daniel Fennell now and be like, I was on dang Todd's podcast, and
it was live. Everyone can watch it. It's all there, So what happens is when these lakes, so Rayburn did it. When Rayburn got 12-foot low, I think in 2012 or 11-foot low, that's why we had never had grass up north again, or ever, right? Grass didn't grow up north above the 103. It got low for all those years, and then when it finally came back up, like within a year or two, the north end of Rayburn, above the 103, was solid grass. It was the most phenomenal thing we'd ever seen. Giants everywhere. And that place, there's no grass now, but there was grass everywhere because the lake got low and it fermates in it like hydrilla, not regular like bank grass, like hydrilla grass. Like grass, there wasn't a speck of hydrilla within 15 miles of the north end of Rayburn. And then all of a sudden it just exploded when it does that. So like I think the ground needs to get dry. It fermates from the sun and does all that, and it magically grows grass again. I think what happened on the other lake is when it got low and they spray it all, I think all those chemicals get in that ground and it doesn't allow that is it fermenting? What is it called? German.
I think
The German.
Yeah,
Is
it's
it
fermenting. I
germinating?
think that's something else.
I like when you use big
fermentation.
words, Todd. I like it when you're just
Big
really
word,
trying
Todd.
to choose some
Now,
big ones.
Is it germination?
Germinating, I believe, is the word.
Germinating. Well, I know, but like, how would you say
germinating? Sounds good.
Germinating.
Fermentation. I think that's whenever they were trying to get more people to come to Germany during World War II. But
Oh, God.
Germinating. Yeah, germinating. I think fermenting is what you do to freaking grapes to get wine. I think that's why. I think my wife.
Yeah,
knows
you're making alcohol.
Yeah. But that's what you need, and I think that's what happened. All those chemicals got in the ground, and nothing.
What happened to that grass?
Won't grow grass, or that other lake won't grow grass.
Why did it end up dying off up there? Did they spray it then?
Where?
When it came
No,
back?
it gets dirty. Our lake fluctuates too much, and so it's always dirty up there from like heavy rains. So it kill Rayburn grass dies all the time, just from lake fluctuation. So
Sean was funny. Did you see his comment? He goes,
No.
he said, "Y'all Texans have a." Oh, that was good.
I didn't.
Y'all Texans have a hell of a
So
vocabulary. I agree.
It just got too high, and it just got too high, and the dirty water. That's really what killed it on the other lake, the hydrilla. It was from all those floods, but it didn't help.
What about Conroe though? Conroe.
Oh, they sprayed on Conroe.
Sprayed too.
Oh, they sprayed on Conroe. They actually
But
go
supposedly
after it.
it's coming back.
Don't shh. Hush.
Well, the guy said it on here.
We don't have to repeat it.
I mean, it's not coming back.
It's not coming back. No, they sprayed it all, and there's not an ounce of grass on Conroe anymore. It's all good.
They only have lights under the docks.
Yeah,
fish the lighted docks.
Yeah, ski and I think they promote going out there. I don't know about. I think I shouldn't say that. They promote all the bad stuff on Conroe. Too many boats, driving recklessly.
Oh, speaking of that, I do want to bring one thing up that I saw, and I don't know if it's true. I'm almost positive it's true. Slick Johnson on TikTok, Alabama Bass Council. I find his Alabama balls I just find it funny as crap. He posted the other day a picture at Smith Lake where they banned wakeboard boats. Is that for real? Did y'all see that?
They should.
That can't be for real.
But no, I mean, like if that actually was the case, I really hope more lakes take that into consideration. How I love it when these lakes say, "Oh, like these bass boat guys, they idle too fast and they throw such a big wake." And you got this wakeboard boat that's literally idling and throwing a 1.5 foot wake, and you're yelling at me because my wake is this big. Like, what the heck? But that's a huge step forward in bass fishing.
And I like to ski. Like I like to ski and do all that stuff. I take my kids out there. Like I haven't got to do on the wakeboard boat. I'll do it, but there's a big. If I'm gonna go do it, I'm gonna go do it out in the middle of the lake. I'm not gonna do it like where all these other people do it around like boat docks, and it doesn't matter. That wake goes for a long ways.
We've got a lot of lakes up here that do it, but we're talking like smaller lakes that limit you to not necessarily certain horsepower, but like the skiing hours. So like from 9 a.m. to 5 p.m., but they don't allow the wake boats. There's like the ones where, you pull the water in and create a bigger wake with it. But that surprises me on Smith Lake, because if there's any lake that's not terrible for it, like Smith Lake is such a canyony, rocky type place that I wouldn't think there'd be much shoreline erosion from it. But at the same time,
could you imagine though being there on like a 4th of July?
Oh, it'd be bad. I love that lake, but that would not be a fun place.
No.
It's a
I mean, I think it's more of they're damaging boat docks. I don't think it's about the
yeah,
ride.
that's probably what it is.
Because the main lake is right there. I mean, you're talking running, even if you're 100 foot off and you're doing a wake boat back and forth,
Yeah.
you're gonna break that dock down really quick.
Plus the fact that it is so canyony in places, it probably just ricochets off those walls and comes back and hits the dock from a different angle. Like it probably is bad. But I'll tell you what, man, when we're there in March or April and like it could be blowing 30 and you can still hum all over that lake because it's so narrow and
Correct.
windy. Like I that's
Oh,
one of
I
my
love
favorite
that
lakes we
Well,
fish.
that's what I was going to say is that, like, you know, erosion, when people say that, I want to make that clear just in case anyone's thinking like me. On when we were at Eufaula, if you go out there on like the main part of Eufaula, right? You don't have a term on Eufaula. I got to watch it now, right, Matt? I gotta ask my question now every time.
Are you talking Oklahoma?
Yes.
Yeah, I've got a tournament there.
So I can't talk about that lake either.
Not in specifics, no.
Okay, this isn't specific. So like on the main lake, you're gonna get some wind in places, right? But I freaking jumped on some dude. I threw my hands up on this wakeboarder guy because he went between me and this other fisherman, but it was in a part of the lake. It wasn't a no wake, but there's no way they're getting big waves right there because it was kind of, you know, it was pretty, I wouldn't say that narrow, but there's no way they're getting big wakes. This guy comes through there. And I threw my hands up and he was like, "Where do you want me to go?" I'm like, "I don't know. The other side where there's nobody," like you literally had to weave in and out of fishermen. And the whole other side of the thing was like wide open. Like you could have just gone anywhere you wanted to around us. And instead you weaved in between us. And I was like, I always be going, you know what kind of conniption they would have if we just got in our boats and started doing figure eights around them while they were skiing? They'd be like, "What are you doing?" I'm like, "Exactly. I'm being an idiot like y'all were doing." Don't get me started. I had to leave yesterday or the other day on Lake Knack 3 different times. On Lake Knack, there was 4 people on the whole stupid lake. And like 2 or 3 of the guys came up like within almost casting distance of me. I'm like, there's no one on the lake. What are y'all doing? I might put one of the guys on.
I'm really glad that
he
you
might have made
invited
the
me to
video.
go fishing.
Huh?
I'm really glad you invited me to go fishing.
You
I
get
live an hour away from you, and you don't even invite me to go fishing.
You get mad if I don't invite you every single time. You've got things to do.
Dude,
Well,
we're
yeah,
pros
but, like-
over here. Give me a call. I'll come down.
You can come
See?
down. I don't know. You got to pick a lake that you're not going to. I've mentioned 2 of them. You're not allowed there anymore.
We can go fish Rayburn. You can
I
show
went
me
to
all
Ra-
the Rayburn
No,
juice.
I know where we can go, but I'm not going to say the name of it.
I went to Rayburn yesterday and kind of caught them.
It's good.
I didn't catch I had like 1 or 2 places where I caught big ones. All the rest, but I mean, I catch a bunch of fish.
I know a spot I'm gonna go cranking the next time I go over
hush.
there. I'm gonna wreck it.
Whatever. No, you're not.
I'm
Hey,
gonna just
when y'all
make a YouTube video there.
I was thinking about this. When y'all go fishing, and say it's a lake that you might have a tournament on, can you just go there and have fun? Like I can't go to Rayburn and like I pulled up on this
Yeah, you
one spot.
can.
No.
We had fun the other day when we went there.
Well, yeah, but this is what I'll say. I pulled up on this one spot and I'm like, man, I caught like a 5-pounder cranking. And I looked out there and I'm like, oh, shoot, there's a bunch of them there. And I left it. And someone's like, "You got a tournament coming up?" I'm like, "Yeah, in like 2 months." But I know better. I know better not to lean. I'm just saying I can't go and if I go to Rayburn when I find fish, I instantly leave them to go find more.
That's good practice anyway, though.
That's all I've ever done.
Yeah.
Do y'all do?
It's
Do y'all not do that?
different. No, it's a different mindset. I tend. I mean, I don't have the issue that you have, where you got a giant lake in your backyard that's a major tournament fishery. But I mean, even around like my house for like Wednesday nighters and stuff, I go to lakes I don't fish tournaments on locally, just because at that point I feel more comfortable catching everyone I have bite versus like, I don't want to catch them here because I might need them for next week or whenever, right? Like,
or 2 months away.
yeah,
Like me.
yeah.
No, I'm the same way. Like, so Rayburn, me and Andrew went and shot a show on Rayburn. And I told, that was the first time I'd been on Rayburn since May. So this was my second time since the last Toyota event that I've been on Rayburn. But I instantly,
My first time of the year.
Huh?
My first time of the year.
Well, I told, and I go to Rayburn. I don't go to Rayburn for fun. I go Rayburn to look,
Yeah. Yeah.
Because you never know when you find something and it's it's a total learning thing for me. Every single time I go to Rayburn, it's a learning thing. Where was it? Why don't I guess he's talking about Ivy and that other one? I don't know, man. Why don't we go, Andrew? I almost don't want to be like some of those guys.
I mean, I'm not gonna lie. I got invited to go to one of them the other day. That's been pushing out all the big ones.
Which one? Is it that muddy one?
Yeah.
I just know it as the muddy
I
one.
love how you guys don't even say it, but yet everyone pretty much knows.
I have no idea.
Yeah, but okay. So when you say that, Matt, here's the deal. When it comes to that stuff,
because you don't have that.
There's actually a big controversy on Lake Fork. What was it, last year or year before last? Where somebody said, "Oh, so and so's on a community hole." Everybody knows the community hole. Well, yeah, everybody in that area might have known about it, and maybe a handful of other people knew about it, but not everybody knew about it. You know what I'm saying? And so, like, if we go blasting on here, like, hey, this is that lake that's pushing out all these fish, it doesn't do any good for that lake. It's you send an extra 150, 200 people there, that's going to hurt that lake significantly. And that's the thing that I didn't like that they did with OHIV. OHIV was so low, and it's not a big lake as it is. And you put that much pressure on it, it hurts the lake significantly. So, like, I don't want to promote a lake, whether I go to it or not, that I think it's going to do more damage than do good. And just because we think everybody knows the name of it,
I get it, but
does.
But when a Wisconsin boy like myself knows the names of the lakes, I kind of feel like.
Yeah, but
I mean, it's the same thing with the big smallmouth lake out. I can't say where it is because nobody wants to talk about it, but like everyone knows the name of it. And I mean, the reality is with most of these lakes, there's not. I mean, you're going to get pressure, right? Like, that's the thing. Guys are going to these lakes. They want to show their pictures of 12-pounders. That gets people snooping around. And eventually, after so long, the names of the lakes get out and the pressure goes, destroys the lake, and then another lake picks up. I mean, that's the unfortunate cycle of it all. It always makes me chuckle when it's like, I mean, maybe I'm more in the loop than a lot of people, I guess, in terms of what lakes are popping off. But it's just funny to me that you guys are like, I sense that if I know what lakes they are, like, I don't think every bass fisherman.
I'm being honest. There's a muddy one. I just knew it as a muddy one. I don't know what it's called. I'm being honest. I don't care. I don't even go there. Let me tell you something. I had a lake by 15 minutes from my house for 8 years that no one knew about. Like 4 of us knew about. No one. I don't care what anyone says. I know I was out there 3 days a week. And I was for 8 years, you basically see no one out there. And even if there were people out there, they didn't really know. There might be like one random person here or there, but they weren't doing what we were doing. And it was just 10-pounders every single day. And when it got out, I've never seen it like that since. And that was the straight up the pad deal on Lake Nat. I had that for years. No one knew about it. That's why I became like this frog fisherman, because I had this thing. And so I have a lake right now that people know about it to a degree, but every time I go out there, there's like 2 boats. And
are these tournament lakes or just
fun fishing? They're fun fishing. And I always said it. This guy made me mad on one of these lakes I was talking about. There used to be a phenomenal flipping bite going on out there. And this is the way I don't know. I'm not saying I'm right, but this is the way I viewed things. If I always was fishing tournaments, we're always shaking fish off. Even if you catch them in a tournament, it's not really fun. Like, it's hard to enjoy the day because you're still worried. There's still pressure, all this stuff. So we had this one lake, and there was a great, phenomenal flipping bite. You could go out there and flip the grass in like 20 foot of water. And so I would go out there maybe like once every couple weeks, maybe even like once a month, and just go have like the most phenomenal flipping day you've ever had. Like, it was great. My wife caught like a 14-pounder out there flipping. I mean, I could go do stuff like that. That's what I have these kind of things for say you came down, Matt, and I'm like, hey, I got this place, dude. You're going to love it. Like, right. So you're going to enjoy the day and do it with my kids, whatever. So I keep some stuff secret because of that. We had this deal, and then this one guy found out about it. He went 2 weeks straight, and he flipped in a big circle for 2 weeks straight. And then had the nerve to tell a buddy who was like, man, it was pretty good for a while, but I can't catch any fish out there. I can't catch them flipping. And I was just going, well, yeah, man, you went and got on the one place they got and you just hammered it. And I was like, when I wanted to go fun fishing, I want it to be like phenomenal, right? I don't want to go out there and like struggle to catch 7. I want to go like have the time of my life and go smash on them. Well, that's how I view fun fishing, is like, I want it to be really, really good. I struggle enough in tournaments and like practicing and shaking fish off for, 5 days in a row. So yeah, there's times I just don't want those places to be found. And like the guys that live there, I don't blame the guys that have a lake that's 10 minutes from their house and they're sitting there, they have it to themselves. And then some guys just go out there and use it to make content and blast it all over everything they look up out there, and it's not good anymore. I mean, I don't blame those guys for being upset at all, one bit.
When you catch sharelunkers down there, do you guys report them or no?
This one lake we didn't. This one lake we didn't.
Otherwise, so if you call one on Rayburn, you'd call it in?
Yeah, no, yeah, who cares? Well, I don't even know if I would, honestly. I don't know if it would there's
well, they take the fish out of the lake. It's the first thing.
And the fish usually dies.
Yeah,
there's
and they take it to Athens.
There's 2 things. One, tell me if I'm wrong about this. Someone in the comments will. They take it there. A lot of them die. Okay, and then the other thing is they usually don't use them to get to reproduce if they're not something like, I don't know what the percentages is, but they have to be a certain percentage of Florida strain for them to have them reproduce, because that's what they want, pure Floridas. So I mean, listen, there's a lot of back and forth on Texas Parks and Wildlife and how they do the ShareLunker thing. I'm not saying it's bad or good. I haven't done enough research on it. I think Texas Parks and Wildlife does a phenomenal job of stocking. I don't think anyone in the country can compete with us. Like, we do a phenomenal job. I don't even mind the ShareLunker thing. I'm just saying,
what benefit does it really have? Like,
yeah, if they're not going to get those eggs, get them and reproduce them, a lot of times they don't, because they're trying to get, I think it's something like 98% Florida strain. That's how you get the bigger ones. So if you're
has there been actual proof, like data showing that the offspring coming from the ShareLunker program is growing bigger class fish? Like, is that?
It's 100%. Yes. I'm not saying from the ShareLunker, but that they're the ones that are stocking our lakes. And dude, the lakes that they stock are way better than the lakes that they don't. Way better. Like, Rayburn's stocking program is second to none. It might be the best stocked lake in the country.
No, I agree with that. But that's also why it keeps up. I mean, like we could go out there today and go crush on them. We could go out there on Saturday and go crush on them and do completely different things each day that you go, and you're still going to catch fish. You might not always catch big ones, but every day you're going to catch fish, and you might catch a lot of them. It's a really unique lake how it continues to just day in and day out produce fish, and especially big ones. I mean, it produces fish all the time. It's crazy.
I hate that lake. I am not a Rayburn fan. Every time I've been there, which is like 4 or 5 times, it fishes tough. Like you catch a limit and you're right around check range just with a limit. Like
Yeah.
11 pounds, generally 11 and a half is what you need for a check. And it's not, but we're always there like to start the year off.
Like I said, I'm not, and they're talking about it. You know, they track them, and it goes back to their regular F1s. Like I said, I mean, but I mean, most of the lakes they're talking about are most of the double digits come from the same lakes. And what I mean by that is like you might get 2 out of Rayburn and like 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 out of Toledo, I think, this past year. But I mean, it used to be like OH Ivy's. They started turning them down actually from OH Ivy because they were getting so many of them.
Yeah.
Isn't that how far is that ride to get it to wherever the Sherlunker hatchery is?
It's a ride because it's in Athens and
It's in OH
Ivy's
5 or 6.
Yeah, something like that.
But I mean, they come down and they get. I mean, they. It's not that they don't take care of them; they do a phenomenal job. But and some guys are like, "Oh, they release them." They do release them, the ones that live. But I mean, a lot of them do die. I mean, you're sitting on a live well. Those guys have to come to you. So you got to call them. They got to come to you. They got to pick it up. They got to drive it back. I mean,
I will say this. I agree.
They're old fish too.
Yeah. Well, I agree with you. I would like to see some new data on it though, because that's what we've known forever. Is like when you called them, your fish was, like it would be like 50-50 if it was going to make it or not. I wonder if with all the advancements in live well technology and all that stuff, if they've gotten better at keeping them alive. I'm assuming they probably have, because I have seen a couple guys catch a 13 or 14, 15 pounder or whatever it be. Sherlunker comes and picks it up. They go do their research, do whatever they do with it, and then they have gone and released that fish. And like I've watched it, physically watched it.
Yeah.
So I would be willing to bet it has gotten better since when it first began. Because when it first began, like the mortality rate of a 13 pounder was very high. Like they were killing a lot of them.
But I don't think it's not Texas Parks and Wildlife killing it.
No.
It's dying in their hands. But I think it's being killed by the angler. Some guy catches one, takes 14 pictures of it, goes in a freaking live well that's this big and it's all upside down Fork was good. I think about keeping them alive, I think, because they would instantly go right there, and the minnow bucket and all those places had places that they would put them. So, I mean, it's not sitting in your live well very long. I don't know if that's happening at OH. I think some of these places don't have those facilities, but I'm not saying it's a bad thing. Listen, I don't care where they come from. I'll take a 8-pound largemouth offspring all day long as they would just restock lakes. Like restocking is the deal. I don't really care if it's I don't need them to be a 14-pounder, the genetics. I'll take 8-pound genetics all day long as they're restocking. I just think that's I think the restocking is way more important. Because some of our lakes don't get it.
I got to roll.
Yeah, I do too, actually.
I'll catch up with you guys. I'm sorry to run, Todd. I got some stuff I've got to go take care of. But
you ain't got nothing to go do.
God, you're so annoying sometimes.
Let's continue this next week. You guys want to do it next week?
Absolutely.
Let's do it. Let's table it just for now, Todd. I don't know if you can remember what we talked about for that long, but
no clue.
Go
Hey.
write it down. Write some notes down. We'll pick up right where we left off.
Here's
Yeah,
what.
Matt Pangrack, write some notes down.
Look, see, I can remove him. Watch this, and then bring him back. This is the great thing. So when he calls you Matt Panger, look, I can just take him away, and look at
Teach him a lesson.
that.
Take
Put you in
that.
timeout. Look, he's not.
Oh, that's funny.
All right, boys. I got to
We'll
run
see you
too.
guys.
All right.
We'll talk to you later. See ya.